Well, the Irish Independent, Saoirse Hanley, is here to rant away with me on this, because I rant about this stuff an awful lot, Saoirse. The big one that we usually start with is phone alerts, messages, news alerts, dings, like musical cacophonous stuff to tell you that a WhatsApp message has arrived. And I went out on a limb a couple of years ago ranting away about this. I think that there is a growing acceptance that this might be rude.
Yeah, I am someone who has long subscribed to my phone being on silent.
Yeah.
I don't even know what ringtone I have. I haven't heard it in years. But I find that anybody who doesn't, in this day and age, we have gotten to a point where there are so many notifications for everything. Like, I'd say if I was to scroll down on my phone now, there would be 3 or 4 that would come in from like that, from a news outlet, or a tracking app that I use, telling me to drink water or something, or a text that came in, and I don't even have notifications on for things like Instagram, so I'm not getting any of those. But if I was getting an alert and a ping for every one of those things, I would be driven so insane.
Well, it's not just that you would be driven insane. I would be driven insane sitting beside you, because we sit beside each other in the Irish Independence office. And I think we are both civilised in that we have our phones on silent. Our phones don't go off as such for alerts. Sometimes, my phone is set to vibrate, so I'll feel it, or you might hear that.
Yeah.
But is it a generational thing? I mean, I'm a lot older than you, so my generation, I think, still suffers a little bit from Gen X, and older Gen X still suffers from their phones being allowed to blare out stuff. But I rarely hear it from people, say, under the age of maybe 35.
Yeah, which I would have agreed with. I would have thought that a lot of my friends are like that our phones are rarely ever off silent. But I noticed, like, my boyfriend, like, whenever we're at home, his phone is rarely on silent. So I would be very familiar with the sounds.
What do you mean by that?
Like, his phone, if he gets text, I'm hearing the ring, the beep of a text come in.
What?
Yeah, it's not on vibrate. So I'll often hear that. Or one of the things that
Sorry. What is his excuse or his rationale for that?
We never talked about it. I've actually never asked him. It just seems to prefer it that way, and he has it set up a certain. So like, when I send him a text, it sounds different to when someone else sends a text, so he knows when I send him one. But I would hear his phone more than I'd hear my own. But I think he might be an exception, because a lot of my friends are like that. I couldn't even tell you what their ringtones are, what their phones sound like. I think what really gets me is I think getting a notification is one thing, but if someone has their phone open and they're in the middle of texting someone back or something, and they're getting texts come in, and it's that WhatsApp sound of, I can't even do it myself. It's like the bloom, bloom,
that's particularly if you're on a bus or a train and somebody is in a text message or WhatsApp discussion, and every 6 or 7 or 10 seconds is a ding, 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 ding.
But I don't understand how it's not driving the texter crazy. It would drive me mental.
With respect to the texter, and you're very kind to have a sensibility for their feelings, I don't give a damn about their feet. What about the rest of us on the bus?
That is true. And the bus, I do think the public transport volume is an absolute epidemic, because the amount of times that I have been privy to someone else's TikTok feed or Instagram reels or phone conversations. Someone behind me was on FaceTime recently, and they were discussing, like, it was a very serious conversation. They were discussing the death of a friend's parent and how difficult it must be and how they must be feeling. And I was sitting on the bus on the way to work thinking, I don't really think I should be part of this conversation, but I am.
That brings me on to pet peeve number 2, which is playing audio on your phone at full volume, or, outside headphone volume. And this is, again, really, really pervasive. So I have asked people on the bus to turn their phone down, or use headphones. I haven't said use headphones, because they obviously don't have headphones. Well,
how does it go down?
Well, it depends who they are. You assess the situation, but generally speaking, I find that they will say they won't be happy. It'll be a surly response, but they'll kind of comply. Generally speaking, they'll comply, because, like, why should the rest of us? The Japanese have the right idea on their trains. A kind of a civilized, silent consent. Not completely silent. You're allowed to talk. You're allowed to do stuff, but don't, like, subject others. Now, there are exceptions to that. I am aware of it. So, for example, I was sitting in a hotel reception recently, and there was a very elderly man beside me, and he was playing videos on. He was watching his TikTok. He was probably about 80, and he was playing them out loud. Now, that is annoying, but I kind of felt that is not a guy who you can say, well, where are your earbuds or your AirPods or your headphones? you know?
Yeah, I do. There was someone on the bus recently enough like that I heard. Got on the bus and I heard the noise of someone else's social media feed, and I was instantly annoyed by it. And then I looked around to who had the phone, and it was a young man with Down syndrome. And I was like, I'm not going to ask that man to put his headphones on because he'd be free to do what he wants. Because I feel like that's not that. Like a lot of the time, I feel like situationally, if you are aware that it's somebody who's not necessarily thinking about the fact that they're putting everybody else out, then it's one thing. But it's when you know that someone knows that they're bothering other people.
Let me test your tolerance, our tolerance levels, with a grey area here. A parent with a young kid who's 2 or 3, and they give the kid the phone or the iPad, and they're playing their cartoon out loud.
I'm throwing that out the bus window. Preferably. And it happens so often. And I try not to judge because I'm not a parent. I don't have children. It's very easy for me to say, why are you giving your child a device to do that on when I don't have kids to test that with? But I think you owe other people on the bus exactly the same as you would if it was your own phone in your own hand. Your child, why they have to watch Peppa Pig on the bus, I'm not sure anyway. But I don't have to watch Peppa Pig on the bus.
So I'll play devil's advocate here. And what if they say, yes, but that is stopping the child from having a tantrum?
I'm trying to think which I dislike the sound of more.
I mean, it's a difficult one. I have sympathies for both cases. Instinctively, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I still kind of think there should be a solution that doesn't have to involve Peppa Pig, on 11. From an audio perspective.
But I do think it's difficult to police sometimes too, because if you ever taken the Cork to Dublin train and gone to the quiet carriage, the G, which is always the quiet carriage, that is supposed to be a lovely silent sanctuary. It isn't. And I can understand having a little bit of a conversation. Sometimes that's okay. It's not ideal, but sometimes, you have a little chat with the person next to you. But there's still people in the quiet carriage, and it tells you everywhere that it is a quiet carriage. You're very alert to the fact that you're meant to be silent in there. People will still be on their phones in there.
Let me ask you this about the quiet carriage and the whole idea behind that. Does that include or extend to clearing your throat, sniffing, sneezing, coughing?
I feel like it shouldn't, but then anytime I'm in that carriage, I do feel slightly aware of it. And also because I have my AirPods on a lot of the time, which are noise cancelling.
How do we think about that? If somebody has, let's say, a tickly throat, is it okay to keep coughing?
Unfortunately, I would like to say
I don't think it is.
Until you're the person who has the cough.
No, sorry. If you have a cough, you can cover your mouth. You can do your best. You can try and do your bit to maintain a civilized atmosphere and norm in the carriage. That is my view. I'm sorry. I know that kind of sounds harsh, but I was seated on the train recently beside a guy, and one of these people who can't keep still.
Yeah.
They're just moving the whole time. They've got tics. And it's like, and then every sort of once every sort of minute or two, clearing the throat. Right now, I think most people were put out by that, but there are other levels to that. There's another guy. This guy was an older guy, and every time he yawned, he let out a self-indulgent, sitting in his armchair with his slippers, right in an open carriage.
Yeah.
Now. Is it just me? Is this Larry David or
people have no shame? Because
no, but it's not okay.
But who's going to stop them? You can tell someone, hey, stop watching TikTok there, but you can't say to someone, hey, keep your bodily functions.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And the analogy I draw, because that sort of behavioural stuff, at least with somebody who's blaring music, because that's not a new thing. In the 80s and the 90s, we had people with ghetto blasters in the back of the bus, and that was an acknowledgement. There is a pathway to resolving that. But things like yawns, clearing your throat, coughing, sniffing, like if somebody is like sniffing mucus the whole time so that their nose doesn't run, I have a whole load of tissues. Is it rude for me to offer them a tissue? I think it probably is rude, even though I feel like doing it. But you're then into the realm of behaviour where, for example, that's analogous to, say, somebody getting on a bus sitting beside you who, say, hasn't had a shower in 4 days. And let's say they smell. Let's say they stink.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think we're at the stage yet in civilization where you can say to somebody out loud, could you sit somewhere else, or I'm sitting somewhere, because you stink. That does feel rude.
Yeah, then there's probably not going to be a point where it stops being rude.
Even though I have done it.
What, you said to someone while you're moving?
No, I haven't. No, but
I'm not going to get a bus with you ever.
I have moved.
Well, I've moved too. We've had to, but then if you're on the inside of someone, you have to kind of awkwardly shuffle around them.
I'll do it. I'll absolutely do it. But I mean, there are lots of related stuff. Like, so for example, go back to the phones and say AirPods.
Yeah.
You have headphones or AirPods on. There are quite a few people who are still getting you. You know, when you give your grandparent headphones for the first time and they talk like that, they don't realize they're talking loudly.
Yeah.
So their own personal tics that they may be trying to subdue, they don't feel they have to subdue them. So they'll hum, they'll kind of talk to themselves, they'll all that kind of stuff. It's very, very strange.
I think that a lot also when I'm in the gym. If I'm ever on a treadmill and I'm running or something and I'm listening to music and I'm really into it and it sounds like it's just me in there because again the noise cancelling, so I'm very locked in and I'm kind of voicing along as I go. And I was doing this last week and I kind of realised halfway through that I was like, I don't know what this sounds like to everybody else because I'm also really out of breath. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of, to me, I'm noiselessly singing along because I'm not audibly singing, but I'm definitely making some kind of noise while breathing really heavily and I can't even hear how heavily because I can't listen to it. So I actually think I'm the problem.
I get that from joggers sometimes who jog past me and they might have earbuds or headphones on. They're listening to loud music. They don't realise. And their normal exhalations are just much louder and much more dramatic and almost sound like something else entirely. And they don't realise. They're like that the whole time. And it is a bit disconcerting, but that's not, again, it's not something that you feel that you can kind of complain about. What I can complain about, to go back to phones, screens on maximum brightness in dark places. Now, you know you're in the cinema and somebody sneaks a look at their phone. There are people who sneak a look at their phone. And then there are people who sneak a look at their phone and their phones are on maximum brightness. And there is nothing else in the cinema that you can see at that point other than a beam of light shooting up, somebody browsing through their Facebook to see if anybody's liked their post.
I have seen I think for a long time I thought I was just being a bit of a stickler about the cinema, that I was like, this is a sacred space. You should have your phone off. It's the one time where you put it aside. So I thought, checking the odd text or something, it happens. We've all been there, fine. But I have lately seen people like that actually open up Instagram, scroll through and open stories and like reply to things.
Yeah.
It ends up really ruining the film for me because I should just get up and say, can you please stop doing that? But I kind of work myself up to it for so long that I just distract myself.
Ideally, you and I and everyone else, we should be able to just try and block that out and focus in a Zen-like manner on the thing we should be focusing on. But that's not how life works. If somebody beside you is blaring a horn, it is going to disrupt your peace of mind. If you're getting a particularly sensitive or crucial part of a film in a cinema and somebody beside you is sort of light on, light off the whole time, it's just disruptive. Now, I'll give you a slightly more pernickety one. This annoys me. I want to see if it annoys you too. I'm watching TV with somebody, say a movie or a program, and they start double screening. They start looking at their phone while, quote unquote, watching the movie. Now, this has happened a few times, and I have actually asked the question, are you actually watching the film? Yeah, I am. And I said, well, you're not. You're looking at your phone. And when I interrogate it further, it transpires that listening to the film can equate to watching the film. That's the explanation.
Yeah.
Do you do that?
I've been on both sides of this. I am often the perpetrator and also the policewoman, certainly in my house about this, that I feel like my boyfriend and I take turns sometimes and be the ones to be on our phones. We generally have a kind of accepted rule in the house that like if you're watching something, you'll try and be present for it. But I've definitely been on my phone, which I often think I'm like, oh, this is fine because I'm doing it. But if he's doing it, I'm really aware of it.
And when you're on your phone, can I just ask, like, when you're on your phone, and like, is it that you don't mind missing the visual aspect of whatever it is you're supposed to be watching because the audio was enough?
I think it depends on, say, if there's something happening and like that, there's a group chat that's firing up about something and people are saying things and I want to know what's going on. I'll try and look at it that, like, I would never like be on, watching a video or something while also the TV being on. But I've definitely gotten caught up in like conversations, or like that someone sent me something and it opened up an app that I looked at and then I got sucked into that. But it's something I've recently bought, I've recently done all of these things to get myself off my phone more anyway and do a lot less passive scrolling. And that was one of the reasons why that I was like, I feel like I'm watching these things and I'm not necessarily looking at what I'm doing exactly what they're all saying we're doing, which is second screening. But I find that it's quite difficult to be on the other side of that. Like if my boyfriend's on his phone and we're on the couch watching TV, I can't focus on the television because the whole time I'm like, is he still on his phone? What's he doing? What's he looking at? What's annoying? Like it's not good enough what I've put on the TV. And I've started doing this annoying thing where I'm like, you okay? Which is
a little passive
that is passive aggressive. And he's like, yeah, fine. I'm like, okay. And then it'll go again. If I think he's still there, I'm like, you're very popular this evening. I want to talk to you. So I don't think I have the best skills to deal with it.
If I was him, I would take that as a red flag.
I think so. I gotta.
Well, let me ask you this then: is it rude to look at your phone in conversation? Can that be a nuanced situation? Are there times when you're with a friend or some class of person interlocutor that you know or you don't know where it's not rude to look at your phone in conversation?
I think if you have made it clear that you're doing something specific, like before I came into the studio today, I had met a friend for lunch and we were talking about that, how when someone is on their phone while they're talking to you and they're replying sort of, but you know that they're not really listening because they're distracted by something. And later in the same conversation, I had to book something I'd forgotten about. So I was like, I need to book that now. And I said, give me 2 seconds. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just going to book this before I forget and I'll come back. And I think that's fine when you've made that clear, because I've been on the other side of that where someone is clearly not listening to you because they're on their phone looking at something. And I think we like to think of ourselves as being very attentive or very able to balance both like that. You think you can watch TV while scrolling and somehow absorb both. You think that you can have a conversation with someone while also be looking at something. And I'll often find myself reply, if I am doing that, I'm on my phone for some reason, like something's taken my attention and I'm replying to someone, I know myself that my responses, they're just vague enough that if I missed what they said, they might not notice. But of course they noticed because they can see with their eyes that I'm on my phone.
Well, I can tell if somebody's looking at their phone when I am on a phone call to them.
Yeah.
Because the answers and the responses become 2 or 3 seconds late.
Exactly.
They drift off. And I can't prove they're looking at their phone, but sometimes I will say, are you still there?
Yeah.
Like your little, everything okay?
Yeah, you okay there?
Yeah. What about things like WhatsApp voice messages? How do we feel about that?
I think of an age where we do a lot of WhatsApp voice messaging back and forth, or at least certainly in my circle of friends, and I do. I'm in two minds because I love sending them and I do generally love receiving them. But sometimes they'll come in when you're in the middle of something or in the middle of the workday or you're doing something. And then it's kind of like, oh God, I have to really, it's no longer I can just reply to this message, fire off a response. I have to now put time aside to listen.
Can I float a theory with you? You might tell me this is completely wrong. My theory about WhatsApp voice messages is that they are indulgent and they're self-indulgent. And someone who sends it likes sending it, and they particularly like the idea of you listening to their 3-minute voice message. And it's much less pleasure, even for people who like sending voice messages, it's much less pleasurable to be subjected to having to listen to them.
I do think that is true, and I know that's true because I listen back to my own voice notes just to hear what it sounded like, which is very indulgent and kind of weird that I do that. But
before you send them?
No, after I sent them. I'll send them off and then I'm like, what did that sound like? What is the person receiving? I think it is a case of it's very fun to send, and it is easier to send. Like if I'm out and about and you might not have, okay, take the bad weather lately, for example. If I'm out and about and I'm holding an umbrella and I'm holding a bag and my phone's in my pocket and someone has texted me and I want to get back to them before I forget to do that, or I have something to say and I don't know what it was, it's easier to send the voice note in that instance because I just don't have hands to text. And you're not thinking about the person on the other side and what they're going to do when they receive this, because they do have to put that aside and listen to what you're saying. I do think a slight caveat is that it is not only it's not that it's indulgent, but it's more that it's very effective if they're people that you don't see very often. I have friends that live abroad and I don't get to see them a lot, and you don't catch up with them very often, and the calls you want to plan to do
Yeah.
never happen. So it's easier to say, give me an update, what are you doing? And we'll send back. One of my best friends, when she lived in Australia, we could never get the time zone right to call. She now lives in Amsterdam, it's much easier. But when she was really far away, we would end up sending reams and reams of voice notes to each other because it was just easier. And it was nice to hear her voice that way.
Yeah, I can see the case for that.
But if you're in the middle of a work day and you suddenly get someone sending you a bunch of voice notes, you're like, oh God, I have to listen to them now.
Because also in my head, it's polite to acknowledge and respond to something you get on your phone like fairly quickly.
Yeah.
With a text, you can do that. With a voice note, if it's 3 or 4 minutes long, what do you just say? Oh, I can't listen to this now. I listen to it later.
I say that all the time.
Oh.
But then I sometimes forget to go back.
Let's continue the passive aggressive thing. Here's a little passive aggressive thing you can do sometimes in response to a voice note. If you don't want them to think you approve of them, but you don't want to say that, you go, ha ha. And let them figure out what you mean.
Could have told you anything in that voice note.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's WhatsApp voice messages. Let's move on to AI. I know you're not a fan of AI. I
never talk about it.
It's critical of AI, but I also see its point. What I'm not a fan of about AI is people using AI in emails to help writing. And I'm aware that this maybe comes across as being slightly snobbish, but when I see a certain construction of text in an email or a message, and I see the long dashes, and I see the bullet points, and I see, I immediately treat it like it's a spam marketing email, and I think less of the person sending it. I imagine that they are less literate, that they have that there's a problem, or that they're lazy.
And I feel much the same, and I'm trying to challenge myself to step back from it a small bit and remove the fact that, like, sometimes I forget that you and I write for a living.
Yep.
We write all the time. It would be crazy for us to outsource the writing that we do, even in an email or a text to somebody. So to me, it's unfathomable, but I try and step back sometimes and think, not everybody works the job that you work. Not everybody feels the way you do about the written word. Not everybody thinks about the way they communicate in the way that you do. So maybe they do need, maybe it helps them to get through the work day.
You're very generous and you're very kind, but let me just double down.
I didn't say it, my strategy was working.
my snobbery here. To me, it's a little bit like adopting a fake accent.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have a really posh accent, even if you don't have the most impressive, most Instagram-friendly accent, like, you don't affect a Southside Dublin accent. It doesn't make you cooler. It makes you sound fake, insecure, nervous, and like somebody who's never going to get anywhere.
And it is, I do think it makes somebody look lazier, because ultimately you've gotten this far, writing your own emails and writing your own correspondences, that I just don't think you suddenly outsourcing that is in any way kind of embracing the tech. I think it's actually just letting yourself down a small bit, and the recipient of the email. Because like that, I think there's a lot, I don't enjoy reading somebody's communication if I know they didn't write it.
But it's gotten to the point, and again, I give Gen Z an awful lot of credit for authenticity and for being able to negotiate and mitigate a lot of the issues that we're talking about here. Now, I'm going to do it again. It's getting to the point where I would almost leave a typo in an email or a message just as a signal, a little signal that there's no way it could have been written or composed by AI. And Gen Z, and to a lesser extent millennials as well, they were the ones who really first started sending texts without full stops and lowercase, no caps at the beginning of sentences. And I used to think, that's just lazy. Now I can see the purpose to it.
Yeah.
I really can.
But it also means that then when somebody who is in that category, or that you're used to communicating with in that way, when that suddenly changes, then you know that they've done that. I mean, I've had friends, have experiences where they know a text that they received that could have been an apology they were getting from someone. It could have been like a serious message, and they'll know immediately from the way it's constructed that this person that they know and love did not write that themselves, which is galling to me. And I do think a huge part of it for younger people that I am incredibly glad that I was left dating apps before AI came to the fore, because I'm hearing more and more that people are getting, they're getting their prompts for any particular dating app written by AI. They are having they're allowing an AI to have the conversation practically.
But in some ways, is that not an easier process for the person who's being subject to that because they can rule the person out? Or,
Well, that's true. It would definitely be an easy one for me.
or is that just being hyper judgy and not acknowledging that dating is hard and that there are human frailties and vulnerabilities involved, and somebody might feel that they're giving themselves a leg. They might actually be a nice person, but they've been suckered into it.
I do have a kind of unique perspective on this because I used to be the dating app AI for some friends, in that when I lived with friends over the years, and anybody who's been on a dating app for any amount of time knows that it's just at a certain point it becomes really tedious to have all these conversations about icebreakers and how many siblings you have and what colour is your favourite and all this kind of crack. So having someone do that with you or for you does alleviate things. And one of my really good friends that I used to live with, we'd often be on the couch together and she would just hand her phone over and be like, "Oh, can you just talk to this guy for a while?" And
Really?
I would, yeah. And I'd obviously have her consult with me on this. I'd be like, "Hey, I'm thinking of saying this," because it was just a fresh eye to look at it for you.
What happened if he sent a pic?
Well, this is it. I had to be like, "Okay, you have to take it back now because I'm no good here." But also, I think that even that had to be limited because I used to be really conscious of the fact that I was like, ultimately, you want to hopefully meet this person. You're hoping to end up seeing this person. You might end up marrying this person. I don't want the foundation of this conversation and this relationship to have been outsourced to someone else. And it's the very, very same thing now, getting an AI to do that for you. It's like, I don't know how much you can. It's two-pronged slightly because I want to say, you know, how can you connect with someone when you're not even writing the messages? But it is incredibly hard and incredibly taxing to connect with someone over a dating app a lot of the time anyway.
What was the movie with Gerard Depardieu and his nose? He's a huge nose, and he was the secret bard behind all the genius messages. Steve Martin played the American version of it. What was it called? You're too young. It'll come to me before the end of the podcast. Anyway, yeah. And emails, AI and photos. Oh my God.
Oh.
Like, I know I shouldn't be surprised because filters have been a thing for a while.
Yeah.
But it's mostly people my own age. But I'm starting to notice now, it's not just LinkedIn. They're now starting to use it on their Facebook or their Instagram photos, or their Christmas greetings, trying to project an image of themselves, which is just impossibly kind of Pixar-like. And it's just, I don't even know. I don't even know if there's anything to say about it because to me, the whole notion of it is kind of ridiculous. And I'm conscious, again, I'm going to go back to Gen Z, that the trend there is for crappy instant cameras, almost a guarantee against that kind of thing being able to happen.
Yeah, I wrote a piece on this recently, just within the last year, and it was about that, the kind of return to analog, you know, photography or to digital cameras. And a lot of the people that I spoke to who were younger again than me were saying that it is kind of, it kind of removes all of the filters aspect. It removes the kind of perfect sheen that you'd normally get off of a really high quality iPhone photo even now.
And people who are looking at it, who are especially peers at that age, they know that, so then they know that there was no way for you to touch things up, and they know everybody's in the same boat. It's
filter free, and that's something I think people are really, really welcoming back.
It takes a certain amount of confidence though, because if you are insecure about your looks, it is tempting just to, you know, go with the best angle, to go with the best.
Definitely. And especially now that it's so easy to ask a tool to do that for you. I think what really gets me about AI use for photography, particularly on social media, is the very recent trend of asking an AI to generate an image of you. So we know there was a big trend in the last couple of weeks to have it make, it was like the amount of stories that I saw that were like, ask ChatGPT to create a caricature of you based on everything you know about me, which, did you not see these?
No.
Oh my God. They were absolute. I've never had my eyes roll so far back into my head every time I saw these. Because first of all, are you really admitting how much ChatGPT knows about you? If I asked ChatGPT to generate a picture of me based on what it knows about me, it would probably grab it from articles and things, but it's nothing I've told it myself.
Well, what was it for the purposes of what though? For a social media
to create an image, like a big caricature.
That you would do what with?
Post to your story, and I assume have all of your friends applaud and
just sort of the crack kind of thing.
Well, I this is the thing, I have no idea what I was supposed to feel when I saw these images, because all I felt was an abject horror at the fact that they were okay with filling all of this information and data into this AI language model and having it spit back out a photo that, like, I saw kind of a lot of people rallying back against this, and they were like, if I wanted a caricature, I would go to some man along the side of the river in any city in Europe and have them insult me the old-fashioned way by drawing a really ugly caricature of me. But what you got instead was this, it's what you get a lot of the time with this AI. I'm putting art in quotations here because I don't consider it art. But what you get a lot of the time with this like AI art is a very cheap imitation that doesn't have any of the kind of, it doesn't capture any of what the original art form is supposed to do. I think characters are hilarious, but the ones that you were getting ChatGPT to generate for you were very complimentary.
Yeah,
people still looked polished and beautiful.
AI slop.
It's AI slop, and I don't understand. I honestly felt like I was waking up from a coma into a different world, that I was like, you guys are all doing this, but like that, it's just a social media trend that will probably never be looked at again. And just for the week that was in it, people just thought, I'm going to post this. And it was like one of those Instagram or, you know, on Meta, a lot of the time they have those stories like a template and you can kind of, it was like, you know, you can add yours to the millions of other people around the globe that are doing this. And there was millions and millions and millions of these characters created. And I hated every single one.
I don't like that universe. I have two more. One, not putting the remote control back in an easily findable place.
Yeah. Down a couch cushion.
The amount of times I walk into the sitting room and it is nowhere to be found. One time it was in the fridge.
How did it end up there?
I don't know. It wasn't me who put it there.
Everyone always likes to think it's not them doing any of this. There's the arguments happen in my back home, my family house, all the time, where someone will say, "Oh, I think the zapper." Sorry, I've always called the remote control the zapper. I realise as I say this, that's not actually what it's called. The remote control, and someone will say, "Oh, I think you're sitting on it over that side." They're like, "I'm not sitting on it. It's not over here." And then they lift up. It's down the couch, behind the cushion. It's under there. They have been sitting on it the whole time. There's often times where you honestly think you're never going to find it again.
Yeah.
And I have a very small living room. It has to be somewhere. I'm not taking it out of the house, but there are times where I'm like, wow, it's gone forever. I'll never find it again. But then I've probably been guilty of putting it somewhere strange myself.
Yeah, and look, I am guilty of many, many crimes and offences in our house. So I don't mean to suggest for one moment that I'm some sort of a paragon. But
what's the optimum spot? The coffee table?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right in front of the couch.
That makes sense.
You literally put it back on the coffee table so it's everybody else can find it. Okay, here's the last one that I could think of today. And that is, on your smart speaker, using your Spotify linked account to go to launch into a massive session of music, which is the antithesis to what you would be listening to, so that it mucks up your 30 weekly songs. Absolute killer.
So obviously your Spotify is the one logged into your household.
Do you know, like for most of the year, I actually pay for 2 different music accounts specifically because of that.
Wow.
I kick it off at Christmas. So at Christmas time, I'll have a separate Apple Music account, which I then use. I try to link to smart speakers, and I'll try to use that because for all the Christmas music blaring, and then hopefully people will use that, and then I cancel it a few months later so I can maintain my. Because Spotify, the thing about Spotify, like, how do you discover music?
Yeah, this is true.
Like, it's not really radio anymore. Let's be honest about it. It's less and less. It's friends and peers.
Yeah.
You're not rifling through albums around. So it tends to be the recommendation based on algorithms. I hate to say it. And that's how I discover music now. And that's, by the way, it's really important. Like the music that I discover, quote unquote, in other words, the algorithm unearths for me. It could be from a few years ago, it could be from this year. That plays a disproportionately oversized, has an impact on my life, on my weekly life, like emotionally. New music.
I think I'm realising that I have a very, very boring music palette. I listen to some of my liked songs just on repeat a lot.
Oh, okay.
But what I find really funny about this is around Spotify Wrapped time, when everyone starts posting, here's what my top 5 whatever is. And normally it's always a man, who has had Taylor Swift unwittingly appear in his top 5 artists. And he can't just leave that up there. It has to come with the disclaimer, my Alexa is plugged in at home and my girlfriend listens to Taylor Swift all the time. That's not me. I've seen it blacked out so many times, which to me says a lot. I know enough about you now that I know you can't say that, but it does. I find it really funny. Or when, you know, like when parents at the same time as Spotify Wrapped are like, obviously I didn't listen to Baby Shark 17 million times. I have a small child, that's why. I think it's really funny that we have to qualify that, because God forbid somebody thinks your music taste isn't up to scratch.
I don't even care what people think of seeing my Spotify Wrapped. I literally care about what it then, you know, prompts me to listen to for weeks and weeks after that. Like, I don't want to listen to Charlie XCX. I mean, like, no disrespect to Charlie XCX. Seriously, no disrespect to Taylor Swift. These are all incredibly impressive, you know, high performer artists. Not my cup of tea. I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, and that's actually the first time that I've heard that of being quite a big roadblock, because that makes sense. Of course it is. It's gonna completely mess up the music you're being suggested from then on.
Yeah.
I'm not encountering this, because I listen to my own songs on repeat all the time.
Okay, well, I'm glad for you, Saoirse Hanley, that you do not have this issue in your life the way I have. I think we've ranted enough for a while, but thank you very much for joining us. The Irish Independent's Saoirse Hanley, and John Smith was on audio today, and JJ Clark produced. I'm Adrian Weckler. You've been listening to or watching The Big Tech Show, and we'll talk to you soon.